like I'm at an AA meeting. I mean, I assume that's what it's like. Good evening, my name's Jenelle Riley. I'm the film and TV editor of Backstage. So thrilled to be here tonight on behalf of SAG Foundation and Backstage for this evening with Silver Linings Playbook. I saw some of you tweet the Silver Linings Playbook. At this time, I'm so honored to welcome first the actress who plays Dolores Solitano in the film. She has been doing amazing work since she was a teenager, working with directors like Peter Weir in Picnic at Hanging Rock. She's, of course, an Oscar nominee for Animal Kingdom, in which she played a very different kind of mother. And after seeing this film, I want her to be my mom. Please welcome Jacki Weaver. Well, now we're out of time. Also joining us is the writer-director who brought these amazing performances together. He is one of maybe 5 filmmakers I can think of that are batting 1,000. His films include Three Kings, Flirting with Disaster, and of course The Fighter, for which he earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Director. Please welcome David O. Russell. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Congratulations on a beautiful movie, more so than I think any film this year. When I talk to actors, they talk about this movie. And because this is a SAG audience, I actually want to start by asking Jacki, how did you get your SAG card?
Bribery. Just applied through the normal channels, I think. I think once Oscar nods its head, it's a bit easier. And also, I'm a staunch unionist at home. I've been a member of the union in Australia, Actors Equity, for 50 years. Wow. That probably helped.
So you didn't have a SAG card before your Oscar nomination?
No, I'd never even expected to work in America. I mean, I love America, I love American films, but I just never had that on my agenda. I didn't think it would be possible. And my whole life has changed in 2 years.
Are your dues paid up? Because they won't let you vote otherwise.
I paid them up on Wednesday.
Just in time for the voting cutoff. So I want to start at the beginning with this film. David, this script is based on a novel by Matthew Quick, and I understand it's been with you for some time?
Yeah, 5 years ago, Sidney Pollack and Anthony Minghella offered me the book, and I actually thought I would make it before The Fighter. Thank you guys for coming out tonight.
So we all kind of have an idea of how Hollywood works, so I feel a little silly asking this, but what happened? What took so long?
Well, initially, I wrote it for Vince Vaughn and Zooey Deschanel, and it just, things come together. Someone's having indigestion. Things come together when, Matt Damon was very gracious. He said to me, after he saw Christian Bale in The Fighter, a role that he was attached to for quite some time, he said, this just shows that the right person plays the right role at the right time. And I think we all have to accept that in this business, much of it is out of our hands. So the ability to finance it at that time was out of my hands. And I went on, and then The Fighter happened, which I didn't expect.
I love how you say The Fighter happened, like it just, dropped out of the sky.
Well, it did kind of. I didn't. It sort of, had been in the hands of Darren Aronofsky, and it then sort of fell out of his hands, and then I was like, I didn't realize this was going to happen, and it was very fortuitous because it really helped me focus on what I most love, which is in this second chapter of my career. In a way, I think I'm hitting my stride. I feel like these families and these characters and these performances are what I really love and thrive on. So it was 2 families in a row that The Fighter just helped sharpen my sense of what we wanted to feel in this home, and helped lead us to Jacki, a woman I had just kept seeing across the room at all the Oscar events 2 years ago, and saying, who is that? They said, that's the mother from Animal Kingdom. I said, that's the mother from Animal Kingdom? Yeah, that's the mother from Animal Kingdom. She looks different. She looks glitzier.
She doesn't seem psychotic. Unlike your previous screenplays, this is adapted from a book. They've all been original screenplays up until this point. Was that process easier, harder, or really kind of disadvantages and advantages to both?
It was helpful because I instantly recognized the book as a kindred spirit, because Matthew Quick has worked in a hospital with people like Pat Solitano, and my son, who's 18, has been through, has bipolarity and some other learning issues, and I've always was looking for an opportunity to make a film that would make him feel a part of the world more, and a part of my world and the larger world, and to do that with this cast has just been a blessing for him and to anybody who can relate to him. And he is the kid in the picture who rings the doorbell. Yeah.
And is terrorized by Robert De Niro.
And just so you know, he had to earn that role because, I don't believe in Hollywood kids. That turns into bad things. So he had to do very well at school and very well behaviorally, which means, you use your strategy. These are all things I got from him. You have to get a strategy. They're all the lessons I learned from him, which apply to me as well. And they're great lessons. He immediately freaked out when Bob, I always knew I wanted to have Robert De Niro in his pajamas walking across the lawn with a bloody nose, because that's sort of the essence of what, all these moments of reckoning with a loved one or a family or a relation, they seem to happen at 3 o'clock in your pajamas for some reason. I don't know why that is. That's something Bradley Cooper observed, and I think it's very true. And there's just that feeling of chaos when you see it in another family. You're like, wow, it's going down. Something's going down next door. The dad's on the lawn in his pajamas, just chasing someone. So Matthew just started laughing hysterically when Robert De Niro came at him. Bob doesn't tell people what he's going to do, God bless him. It was very personal to him as well. He's had family experiences with this, and he cried when we discussed the script, and I knew that meant it was personal to him, and I knew that meant he was really going to show up for real, and he did, and he really put his heart into it. And I told him that Jacki and him had a marriage that was real, and that they still, had a sex life, and that was important information for them, and they immediately kind of got who they were as a couple. They were a yin and a yang, but it worked. But just to finish the Matthew story, I said, Matthew, you can't laugh. This is serious, And he said, well, he's just very scared, So he was, and Robert De Niro, to his credit, said, it's real. Let's play it. Mm-hmm. And it turned into that great turn where he says, I'll come over here, I'll break that camera over your head, I'll come back and interview you about what it's like to have that camera broke over your head. What are you laughing at? And it goes immediately. It's a very nice thing that he does. Then he goes, I'm sorry. It just goes boom, boom, boom. It's just beautiful. But these two immediately felt like a couple, mm-hmm. and just terrific. I mean, maybe Jacki can talk about that.
Jacki, how did the script find its way to you? And after an Oscar nomination, did the Hollywood offers start coming in?
Yeah.
It's true. Thank you for saying that.
My life changed. Yes. But when they said, I was doing a play in DC with Kate Blanchett, Uncle Vanya, and I had a message from my agent here in LA. Could you go and see David O. Russell about this, and sent me the script, and I said, I really want to do this. And my friend and I and my husband, we drove from DC to Philadelphia to see David. And my interview with David went for about 2 hours, and I nearly didn't make it back in time to do the show.
Wow.
I didn't tell you that. I got into trouble.
No, I was a little nervous that we had gone too long. And I felt bad that you had driven so far. To Philly to DC is 2 hours. Is it 2-3 hours? And then you had to come down. You came up and back.
Yeah.
And then hit the boards that night, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. Yeah.
So in all your years of working, Hollywood never approached you? You were never interested in coming to LA to make films?
I was always interested, but it's a very difficult thing for a foreigner to come here and be an unknown. And I mean, kids do it a lot more now, Australian kids who've done well in soaps and so on can come here and get an agent. And some of them do awfully well. Others slog away for years and don't manage it. But no, at my generation, seemed like an impossible dream. I grew up watching American television and American movies, and when I was 6, I wanted to be Esther Williams, but I'm a terrible swimmer. But yeah, no, seriously, it was just, and I always had plenty of work in Australia. I used to get lead roles in things that I wouldn't have had a hope of getting in America. And I played lots of Americans too, so that's why I don't have much trouble passing for an American.
Well, actually, not just American, but a Philadelphia accent. How long did it take you to master that?
Thank you. I did have some help. I had a coach for a little while. Suzanne Solby, she was fantastic. But, and I did find out that Philadelphians really resent New York actors trying to pass off New York accents as Philadelphian. So she was pretty strict with me. But yeah, and it helped also that Bradley is a native Philadelphian, and I met his real mother. And Bradley's awfully tall. Those of you who haven't met him, he's a lot taller than you'd think. He's about 6'3". He's a really big lad. And I'm under 5 feet, and certain members of the crew kept teasing me, how could you possibly have knocked this kid out? And then and then one day his mother came on the set, Gloria, and she was my size. So it's possible.
She actually looks very much like Bradley's mother, and it was a perfect fit because Bradley has those piercing blue eyes, and you know, it's from his mother, his Italian-American mother, and Robert De Niro and Bradley, who had been together in Limitless, had a very good dynamic as father and son. Actually called me and proposed that, in a fit of excitement and actors' collaboration that is exciting and scary for directors, they said, we have a great idea. What if Bradley's mother played his mother?
Wow.
And I said, well, has she ever acted in anything? And they said, no. And I said, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. And so we found Jacki, which was a blessing.
So thank you. Was Bradley's mother even interested in doing the part?
Who knows? I mean, she hung out on the set, and she would say, Bradley, that sounds just like you at the house, inside the house. And then when he started talking about that, she said, don't talk about our family. So you can't win.
Yeah. I have to talk about this amazing cast, obviously. How did you go about assembling it? Who came first?
Well, so we went through the Vince Vaughn incarnation, and then there was I made the fighter, and then there was the Mark Wahlberg incarnation, and I had my choice of several. I love Mark. I've done 3 pictures with him, and we had our choice of several actresses who really wanted the role, big stars, because it was a dimensional role for a young woman. And the mother, Edie Falco was someone we talked to, but she was doing her TV series, and the next person on the list really was Jacki, with Bradley's mother in between. And so Mark and things are out of my hands. Mark and Harvey couldn't seem to work out their schedule and their deal. So then it was on to Bradley, who I knew would surprise audiences which I felt excited about. Mm-hmm. I love working with actors, and I especially love surprising audiences with actors in new ways. And I feel we did it in many ways with Christian and Amy in The Fighter. And this was an opportunity for Bradley, who, I knew he could be credibly angry and intimidating from Wedding Crashers, so I knew he could be a scary bipolar person from that. And I knew that when I met him, what a tender-hearted person he was, and that he had lost a lot of weight and become a happier person, and had dealt with issues with substances, and so he had so much dimension to himself as a person, and so much humility, that really was like the character. And I think his eagerness to play a new character reflected the character's eagerness to be reknown by the people in his community, in spite of what had happened. So that was a perfect confluence there.
At the same time, you wanted to rough him up a little bit.
Yeah, so you don't want we don't want someone suffering from excessive handsomeness or beautifuln's when they're they're supposed to be real people. So he has one of those great faces that if you at a certain angle it looks charactery. He's not he's not a perfectly symmetrical Brad Pitt face, you know? I mean, he has a somewhat ethnic face, and so he has scars on it, and we accentuated them. And we knew the hair, the great mane had to go, and we grew a little stubble, and he looked like someone who had been through the ringer a little bit.
And what about casting, Jennifer? Much has been made of the fact she auditioned over Skype.
Yes, Jacki apparently, that was my first Skype audition, and Jacki apparently remembers one that I don't remember. I just remember her coming in person. Did you Skype that thing?
Yes, in New York, I went to the casting office. I think you wanted to check on my accent.
I'm sure we wanted to be sure you were comfortable with the accent, and I think you did beautifully. I think, and I also wanted to see how comfortable she was with moving off script, and she was also extremely comfortable. She's very comfortable in her own skin, and the presence she brings to the house really brought all the life to the house. You can't make this world real without Jacki's enormous warm presence every time the camera goes to her. And she and Robert both taught us an exercise in simply being present. They taught everybody on the set. They were never impatient, they were always simply present, and they were never trying to do too much, and they're always content to be there inhabiting a character. And Jacki has so much emotion in her eyes and in her face. I can name the moments when the camera goes to her, and it still to this day gives me an impact. When Robert De Niro says, I believe in you, I believe in you, I'm going to bet heavy on you, bet heavy, which is kind of a crazy idea, that because you love your son, you're going to bet your family's entire income, and the camera goes over to Jacki, and she's just going like that in her Jacki Weaver way, and it just has this. It kind of so much is being said through her face. It's saying, please listen to this. We love you. We take it seriously. And it was within moments from that an improvisation happened where Jacki came forward and kissed Bradley on top of his head as only a mother can. And Bob is just staring at it, watching. It's just very beautiful.
Jacki, when you signed on, did you know that your husband was going to be Robert De Niro?
Yes, I did. I was overwhelmed with excitement. I mean, not just to my generation, every generation, he is an icon. And I had quite a bit of apprehension, but it disappeared after a few minutes because he's so gentle and quiet and sweet and kind and generous. And I'd launch into every take thinking at the back of my head, he's just another actor. You're just acting with another actor. And then David would say cut, and I'd think, oh fuck, I just acted with Robert De Niro.
Did anyone do De Niro impersonations on set?
I think it's kind of rude. And I think he must have had it all his life. Are you
Yes.
talking to me? I think he must get it everywhere.
Yeah.
He is he really showed up to play because it's personal to him. And we were standing, I remember when we did the dance sequence, and he was in the corner with Chris Tucker, Shea Wiggum, watching the dance for 2 days, standing there, watching the dance for 2 days. So every time we'd be directing the dance, I just couldn't bear to look over there. I was like, Robert De Niro was just standing there, and I don't have anything to say to him, and I can't believe he has to stand there all day. And but although his reactions and Jacki's reactions and John Ortiz's reactions are what help make the scene what it is. It's all in the context of the emotion of the family. So going to those close-ups meant everything. So he was just sitting there being present, teaching all of us. And I went over to him and I said, Jacki said how generous he is. And I said, Bob, how can you just stand here all day? Don't you kind of, he said, look at all these other people. There were 200 people there. And he said, look at all these other people. They do it all day. And they're happy to be here. And they're doing it for a small fraction of the recognition and the money that I'm getting, so why can't I do it? And that's who he is.
I talked to Jennifer today, and she said that when she did that audition over Skype, before you guys started, you made her jog in place. Do you remember this?
I don't remember it, but I have the Skype on my desk. I have the Skype saved on my desktop, so I can. It's there. It's in her father's study in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm not surprised I did that because I want people to shake off any kind of nerves and preconceptions they have, and just sort of and any embarrassment they have. And she's very like the character in the film. She's very forthright. She's not neurotic. She is direct. She wears her feelings on her sleeve. And she brought it on that audition. She put on the eye makeup. She dressed as the character. She put on the nail polish. She dressed as the character. She took every direction. And we were kind of knocked out because I frankly thought she was too young to play the role, and I thought it was almost like as a courtesy that I was even doing the audition because we had thought we had our finalists. It was at the 11th hour, really.
I just thought maybe you made her jog in place because it was the scene.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm sure she was running, so I wanted her to probably run, for the scene. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, a lot has been made about the fact that it was a Skype audition. Do you think it affects the audition? Are there disadvantages and advantages going on tape or Skype as opposed to being there in person, or do you always prefer to meet the person in person? It's a lot of persons.
I think you have to do both, I did end up meeting her in person and was knocked out even further. She came to Boston from the North Carolina set of The Hunger Games to meet me during the summer before we shot, and did some further work. And I was very grateful that Harvey was very concerned that she was perhaps too young. And you see that she's kind of has an almost ageless quality about her. And as soon as he saw the audition on my laptop, he just said, "Oh my God." As soon as she just started, he said that. And I said, "Okay, great." So he got it right away. Shea Wiggum from Boardwalk Empire. I mean, it really takes everybody to make this world. Is perfect as the older brother. His performance is so present. I mean, the whole ensemble. He's truly the older brother, the shorter older brother, who has everything going great for him. And he was part of the process of finding that dynamic. He embraced that. Everybody had a very positive attitude and a go-for-it attitude. We shot 154 pages in 33 days. So everybody had to be very all for one and one for all. And that makes all the difference in the world. Because I feel privileged to be doing what we're doing, and it's very special to me. And I want it to be very special to everybody who's there. John Ortiz came in and took that part. I wanted an authentic person who felt like a neighborhood person and someone who had some ethnic feeling to them. And there were many handsome actors who wanted to play that role, and I said, no, we're not going to have handsome actors in this movie. I'm sorry. And no offense to any handsome actors, but
No offense to John Ortiz.
John Ortiz, that came off really bad. John, you are an extremely handsome man. I love you, John. John, I meant he has character is what I mean. He's not just, he could never be in a soap unless he was like, the killer, So John, I'll just keep digging myself deeper. But the thing is that John had this whole version of the character, that he had the guts to pitch me. And he said, I have this whole thing, and I go, oh, here we go. The movie's all about this guy's character, right? So I'm like, this is going to have to become a 3-hour movie. So he tells me, and then he goes, and he said, my character's not happy. And I said, no, that's not possible. No other characters are happy in the movie. Jennifer's not happy, Bob's not happy, Bradley's not happy. Your character is the happy one with the wife and the kids. And then all of a sudden it struck me that it was a brilliant idea. And it was perfect, and it gave us some of our favorite scenes in the movie where he's saying, "I'm not okay. Don't tell anybody." The baby and the job and the dicks at work. It's just wonderful. And then the whole thing with the iPod gets very specific. Yeah. This is all what I love is all the specificity that all the music was off of his iPod, the music they danced to, the White Stripes, West Side Story, Stevie Wonder. It was all from his iPod.
Jacki, you've been doing this for so long. You're so accomplished. Do you frequently have to audition still?
Only since I got to America. No, well, it's just that having acted since 1962 in Australia, everybody knows me. So they either want me or not. But I'm happy to screen test for everybody. It doesn't bother. I'm not snobbish about it. I think, how else do they know what you can do? It's fine.
Are you good at it, or have you had those disastrous auditions that all actors...
I think we all have. I think I've come out of auditions saying, you idiot, you moron. Yeah, I think it's universal, hey. But I think I'm calmer now. I've done so many now. I'm so used to it. I think you've got to be fearless. It's one of the most important things you can, even though we're all terrified underneath, you got to tell yourself you're fearless.
And David, if an actor is lucky enough to get to audition for you and get in that room, is there anything you would want them to know? Any pet peeves you have? Should they jog beforehand?
No, I just want them to be game. You know, that's the main thing to me. If they're game, if they have a warmth and an openness to work with me, and to not be precious about it, and to take direction and try it different ways. I always tell anybody who's going to audition, prepare it 3 different ways. And even if they don't offer it, or you offer it to them. Even if they say, well, listen, you want me to try it? I can do it a couple of ways. And say it like it's like no big deal. I'll never forget the one time I took an acting class in college. This acting teacher described Christopher Reeves auditioning. She watched him audition on Broadway. And she said that he was so present. You know, he was smoking a cigarette, and right before he started to audition, he just put out the cigarette, stubbed it out, and just very comfortably started to do his thing. And there's like a comfort there that I think is, that's the key that Jacki's saying, is even if you feel like you're going to freak out inside, you have to, you know, go the other way, which is probably the biggest acting you'll ever do of your life, you know, but it's what we all have to do when we go to work to make a movie. I mean, we're all scared. If you're not scared, you're not going to do a good job.
Is that a bigger acting job, or pretending to be pleased for the person who's just won the Oscar over you? What's
Oh my God. I know. I didn't even think about that.
When you know that camera's right. Actually, you were both there the same year, and that camera's right in your face.
Well, you know, I was more frightened about my husband jumping up and screaming out, "Wrong!" Because my husband's an actor too, and he's a very volatile personality. And I was just relieved he didn't do that. And the moment that the other person's name's announced, there's this sharp stab that's a split second of disappointment, and then there's this warm wave of relief that you don't have to make the bloody speech. No matter how many times you rehearse that speech.
I think it was William H. Macy said that every time he's lost, he always had a better speech than the person who won. And that was the most frustrating thing, was going home and looking at that speech and saying like, oh.
They'd have loved this. Yeah. They'd have loved it.
This was golden. I do want to get to some audience questions, but I want to talk about the balance of humor and drama in this film. It's something that everyone cites. It can go from, you know, such highs to such lows, and sometimes in the same scene. How did you achieve that on set, or in the editing room, or both?
Well, you have to make it real. That was my biggest lesson coming back to The Fighter, and then this film. It's just, be sure you're coming from a raw and real place. And then whatever is funny, you know, I think Goodfellas and Raging Bull are 2 of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I mean, they're also, you know, obviously very dramatic, but they're funny because you're just kind of looking at these people, and that's what motivated me when I recognized the characters in The Fighter and said, I know these people. These are like many relatives I have in Brooklyn or the Bronx that you're watching and we're like, wow, look at these people. You know, I mean, let's just listen to them talk, you know. Yeah. They're just inherently entertaining and real. And if they're funny, it's because they're so committed to their agendas, you know. There's all these currencies in the film. Jacki's very committed to her son getting back on his feet. And every time you go to her, that's there. Bob is very committed to making money through bookmaking. Life and death. Life and death with the Eagles. So that's life and death every time. That's like, so he's just talking that language. That's his language. Bradley's all about the letter and Nikki. That's his language. It's like you entered his country. That's his language. It's life and death. And Jennifer, same thing, with just wanting to dance and try to get out of her house and get close to this guy that she thinks might be right for her. It's committing to it 1,000%. Emotionally, is going to make everything else follow, and that's what weeds out the bullshit, I think, too. So for me, it's coming. It was so painful and emotional to deal with all these issues that my family has dealt with that there was no way it wasn't extremely dramatic. But it can also, you know, I've had scenes with my son where I'm like, wow, that was hysterical in retrospect, but maybe not so much when you're living it.
Yeah. So I have a question. Okay, first of all, I just want to say it one time. David is not Irish. It's David O. Russell. I'm seeing a lot of David O. Russells. You would
I'm half Italian Catholic and half Jewish.
So we have a question from John. Oh gosh, after that lecture now, forgive me if I butcher names. We have a question from Jonathan Rumi. Hey, I got it. Working with a legendary actor like De Niro, did you feel like you had to hold back in any way as a director, as in offering adjustments?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for admitting it.
I was very, very respectful. of Mr. De Niro. I mean, you just give him a lot of room, and you say, do you want? Just let me know if you want to talk about anything, and then he comes over and he starts the dialogue, and he's ultimately very, very welcoming. But you let him, and he surprised us time and again. And very often I find people most surprising on that. You say, okay, that's it, we got it, and everybody's lets their guard down, and you go, no, let's do one more. And then something weird happens. Every time something interesting happens. That's when he cried. I go, okay, we're done. It wasn't in the script for him to cry. It was never a direction. I never asked him to cry. I never said, you're going to cry now. I never said, it was never a wish. And then I said, let's do it one more time. And then I was like tucked away in a corner of the attic because I don't like to stay by the monitors. I like to be with the actors. And there was no monitor, and I couldn't tell what was happening. I thought, is he looking for a line? What's happening? And then I realized, oh, something's happening. And then Bradley was like, oh my God, that was amazing. And then Bob did it 5 times for Bradley's coverage, which is what makes him such a generous actor. He then cried, for Bradley's coverage. So.
Wow. Question from Wendy Kush. I will read exactly what she wrote here, in beautiful purple pen, by the way. David, you are so awesome. Love you. Do you have plans to write any more original comedies? I feel like everything is either an adaptation, remake, or superhero movie these days. Is it harder to get an original comedy made?
Yes. I have an idea. Yeah, I have some films that I very much want to make that will be made. And then the next film is going to be very real in this vein, probably somewhere between this and The Fighter. It's with Christian Bale and Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and Bradley Cooper, and it's a good cast. It's a true story in New York in the 70s, and we must find a home for Jacki in that film. Jacki, in terms of when she was asking me about the drama versus the comedy, like when Pat's looking around for the video, I could feel the audience feels it's funny to a point, and then there's always this gasp when Bradley elbows you off his back. And he goes, and it's a match cut from his girlfriend, his wife, who's on his back, and the flashback to Jacki on his back. And that took a lot of patience to choreograph, and it was very charged emotionally, and she had to take a spill.
And I'm very old.
We don't admit that here.
I used to do stunts.
But you did a stunt there.
I did.
You did. You hit the deck, and very credibly with your face to camera. Did you get bruised at all or hurt at all?
Yep.
You did. Yeah. Did they pad you up for that at all?
No, they didn't.
They just made you do it on your own.
No, I don't think they did. No. But I was...
How did you hit? You must have landed on something, a pad or something.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a mattress on the floor, yeah.
How many takes were there of that?
A few.
We tried to limit it, though. It was
Yeah.
just two or three times. Ben Bray, who's a wonderful stunt coordinator, did not want to do it more than 2 or 3 times. And then she jumps on Robert De Niro's back, and when she...
I didn't mind.
See, it helps when someone is so sweet and starstruck, and which we all were a little bit. None of us was above any of that. That's good.
Jacki, actually, along those lines, a question about what was the most difficult scene. That might have been it.
The group scenes I found difficult because the way David has the camera work, it's everywhere all the time. So it's like being on stage. You just don't relax. You're constantly aware. You never know when you're on camera or not. Well, you do, but that it's so...
You don't know when it's going to come to you.
Yeah.
So we light 360 degrees and we run it on a 20-minute mag, and we keep running the scene until people are doing it so many times that it just becomes a rhythm, and then I can sometimes shout things in, but they're in a rhythm. And so we go, let's pick it up again, and the camera, I may say, swing to Jacki right now, and so everybody's very present, and it's very immediate and raw. It has an immediacy to it.
Oh, did you have a
That's
tough
all
scene?
you can't switch off. It's a 20-minute take virtually, so you're on all the time as though you're on stage.
And that's why she is a stage actress, so she was comfortable doing that, thankfully.
We have a question, oh boy. Shabazz. Wait, let me try this. Shabazz Sarwar. Hey, thank you. Once. Gotcha. What's the main difference for you when working with an actor with a traditional acting degree, with no traditional acting degree, i.e. Christian Bale, compared to trained actors? And along those lines, another question, you have so many different acting styles in this film, you know, between like Chris Tucker and Robert De Niro. How did you get them all into one cohesive whole?
I think people sort of catch on to what the vibe of the set is. Maybe you should answer that. I mean, I feel like we kind of got a thing going and people get what it is, you know, and when newcomers would show up, they'd be like, wow, you know, they would see this thing going on. And Bradley's very generous and he would go, come on in, the water's fine. You know, he'd just say to everybody, jump in. Because we kind of almost start shooting the rehearsal, really. We just kind of go, you know, and Chris Tucker is probably the biggest improviser of any of us, and he had to memorize the most technical lines, the legal lines, which we were laughing at him the whole time because he had to, you know, if one of your two supervising physicians loses their license, your whole adjudication is thrown out. That was the easiest line that he had to memorize, and he had all these legal, which are legally, literally the law from what happens with people who have to plea bargain to a hospital, and. You know, I mean, he brings a whole dimension in a different way tells you the story of Pat. It tells you that he's a guy who made a friend, that he had a life in the hospital, and that they're in it together. And the fact that Chris had been absent for so long from the screen helped. Because every time he walked on, it was like he was walking back from, you know, 2007 when he did the last Rush Hour. It was like, oh, where have you been? Oh, you've been in the hospital. You know, I mean, and you know, it was like, you know, they both had a feeling that they'd been away, you know, which was good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for a director, I'm saying. But everybody's very different. I don't know. You just kind of, everybody gets the vibe of what you're doing, and I don't know. I mean, between classically trained, I just was doing some audition work with Andrea Riseborough. I don't know if you know her, but she went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic in England, But I was concerned that she would have a very technical way of acting, but she was extremely game for like by any means necessary. Let's get there by any means necessary. Let's do it in a fluent way, in a fluid way. Let's just get there whatever way we can. Let's find a warm way to communicate and not be precious about it. And you know, Robert De Niro would say, you know, he made a joke. He'd say, "This was bedroom perfect this morning." And what he meant was when he did it in the mirror in the bedroom, it was perfect. And then you come to set, and of course, much of that goes out the window because you're not going to do it like it's a soliloquy in the mirror of your hotel. And so, you know, and that was something Melissa Leo would talk about. She would say, the way I pictured it, and I remember Mark Wahlberg said, well, this is not how you pictured it, this is how we're doing it. And, you know, and that was, you know, important for everybody to have to be able to let go of what we were doing in the moment. So a trust is important, and a trust that you're going to get in the game. You know, Julia Stiles, I think, was a little taken aback by the approach, and it fit with her character. Yes. Frankly, it worked out. When I would go to the cutting room, I'd go, "My God, she's just fantastic," you know, and so it worked out great.
We have a question. Jackie, do you really know how to make Krabby snacks? Is that part of your research?
I know how to make brajol because
she made it many times.
I made so many. That wonderful props crew in Philadelphia taught me how to do it. I could make them now if I had to. Yeah.
Prove it. There's a kitchen in the back, actually. The only thing actors love more than free screenings is free food. We have a question from Kenneth David Ebling for director. With 28 NFL teams, including Steeler Nation, who, how, when decided on the Philadelphia Eagles? P.S. Go Steelers.
The book was written in Philadelphia and was specific to the Eagles, who are a very specific team. And we picked the 2008 season, so it was very specific. It's also the year the economy crashed and people like Robert De Niro's character lost their income and had to resort to things like bookmaking to support themselves. So it was a very specific season that had the Cowboys game at the end. It's a very specific culture. I went to a few Eagle games, and it's the only stadium I've ever been to where the parking lot where there's regularly posted electronic messages that say, if you see a disturbance or violence nearby, please text this number. Go Eagles. So, they are a very passionate, wonderful culture. And I ended up kind of loving going to the tailgating there a couple of times, and I didn't see any disturbances.
Jacki, you've worked with some of the best directors in the business. Obviously, you started with Peter Weir. What is it you hope for from a director when you show up on sets? And was there anything about David that you think would surprise people to know?
Next question.
I love working with David because it's such an adventure. It's a roller coaster. He's so capricious and so unpredictable and passionate, and every day is an adventure. There's no plodding sort of. I mean, I love directors with a vision, and some of them are plodding, but they still have a vision. I like guidance, but I like collaboration. I like to be given my head occasionally. But I love it when they know what they want, but they want to see what you can give them. Yeah, I'm just an ordinary old actor like all of us.
I forgot to mention in the beginning, actually, this film won the Audience Choice Award at the Toronto Film Festival, which is a huge honor. And I think that was the first time you really screened it for an audience. What was how did it feel to get such a warm and amazing response?
It was extraordinary. There was spontaneous bouts of applause right throughout the film. And at the end,
2,600 people.
Yeah, and they
It's like
stood.
screening a movie at like Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, and they stood and cheered at the end. It was wonderful. And I did wonder, this is such an American film. I wondered, how's it going to go in England and Australia? And then I did an interview with a British journalist a few days ago, and he raved. And he was so frightfully British. He was so British. And he absolutely loved it. So, and I think it's gonna work in Australia too. I mean, not that we've got such a tiny market, though we are a big cinema-going nation. But I think the family aspect, I mean, every family's got problems, and every country has a football culture that borders on religious, and Australia and Britain, and of course, are no exception. So I think people are going to love it everywhere.
That's not football, that's soccer. You can't fool us.
Excuse me, we play rugby in Australia.
Rugby.
Australian
Not
rules.
even soccer. You should learn that.
Australian rules.
Rugby.
And for you, what was the
VFL.
It
response like?
was just wonderful because I've been in that theater and died. I've been in that theater and been sitting behind Roger Ebert and been like, not so much. With my fourth film. So I mean, it was wonderful when people feel a film. You put your heart into it and you just want people to feel it. And especially these films, The Fighter and this film, are all about the feeling. They're all about the emotion. So that's what these films are. So you want people to feel it. And there's also an exuberance. As much as there's suffering, there's an exuberance that I think people enjoy. And that was wonderful to see. What was a new experience for me, Jenelle, was when we were walking out, literally walking out of the theater with Robert De Niro, and people were coming up to me going, look what people are tweeting. And I was like, I just walked the curtain, just came down. How could that? It's very strange to get used to that thing, because I don't really go on those sites. So, but people were coming up and saying, I guess they were doing it from the theater.
Shame on them. They should have been watching the
God
movie.
bless them. No, God bless them. Apparently, God bless them.
I'm sure they waited until right after it was over. Nobody had their phone out during the movie. Well, again, congratulations on a beautiful movie. So much heart, so much talent on screen. Every actor I know loves this film. Everyone I know loves this film, not just actors. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you, Jenelle. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Jacki.